Hi, Dad. Welcome back to another episode of Dave and Andy's Honest About Life. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Andy. You're looking good. You must be doing well.
I'm doing fine, thank you. I appreciate that. I do. Uh, so, if you think about if you had to identify one single proudest accomplishment, I should maybe say one accomplishment that you are most proud of. Can you identify that?
Hmm, accomplishment that I'm most proud of. I would probably accomplishment. You know, I love all my kids that I have, so but that's not an accomplishment. Um, an accomplishment, I guess, would be the fact, I guess, that I made it through college while being married and having you and your sister Allie, along with to graduate from a strong university, Florida State University, with my degree in meteorology. And I feel that as an accomplishment because I had to work full time to support the family and go to school full time. So it was kind of it was tricky, but I feel that was a pretty good accomplishment.
That really is. That is tough. A full-time uh, course load, a full-time job. Yeah, that and two kids. It's funny. I can't even imagine what it would be like to raise children at such a young age. And, because that all by itself is a full-time job. So I get
Yeah,
that.
and don't you remember you didn't have shoes, you
Yeah,
barely had a
right.
shirt.
Yeah, I think I remember sitting on a nest of fire ants because you put.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. How do you remember that?
I
You
don't
had a
know that I
diaper
do.
on for crying out loud.
I've just heard the story. I don't know. But what did you do? You forgot to put a diaper on me and set me down in a nest of fire ants?
I didn't know. I didn't know. This was our free time in between semesters or whatever down at Florida State. We'd go to these sinkholes. They had sinkholes all over the place in North Florida. And they were great swimming holes. They're beautifully clear water and whatever. But I remember, oh, this was traumatic because we had set you down, you were playing with your toys in the sand, and then all of a sudden, just a scream of all screams you let out, and we go running over there, and you're covered with fire ants, just covered. So what I've heard, and you probably know this more than I do because you took this kind of stuff in college, is that they kind of cover their prey and then they let out some kind of signal and they all bite at once.
Oh,
And
that
that's
sounds
what you had.
awful.
You looked so you were you were red and welted for so long. You used to get big welts just from a mosquito bite.
Yeah.
And so I think you had that in you, but that was just, oh, that was awful. I was so traumatized by that. I thought you were going to die. I mean, it was, and everybody on the beach, everybody came running over there. They thought you were dying.
I mean, you're just wiping off red ants. And then
Oh, it was crazy. And then I took you and dunked you in the water just to try to get some of them off. It was horrible.
the trauma that you allowed to happen. Honestly,
I'm sorry, buddy.
that's just.
Oh,
Another story that comes to mind is you were driving, you and mom were driving, and you fell asleep behind the wheel. That is really quite an interesting story, in that there was somebody behind you that stopped to help.
that was a semi driver. Yeah. And he had been watching us I got to tell you the story, kind of set it up a little bit. Your mom and I, on our honeymoon, drove down to Florida. We drove in a Mustang. It was just a little Mustang, right? But you got to understand when this was. This was 1972. And so we drove down, and it was fun driving down there. We spent 5 days, I think, in Florida. The last day we went to Disney World, and Disney World hadn't been open for very long. It was a fun place. We had a great time. We spent a whole day there. We got there early in the morning and left at 6 p.m. I had to be to the University of Minnesota. This is when I was going to U of M. I had to be there on Monday, and we left Saturday night at 6. and I had to be there on Monday morning for my class. So we were just going to drive through. I was just going to, it's about, I can't remember, 22-hour drive, 23-hour drive, something like that. But so I left at 6 p.m. from Orlando, Florida. We got up to Tennessee and I fell asleep driving. Horrible thing, because our car went off the road, obviously, and we went into the median on Highway 65, I believe it was, in Tennessee, and their medians were huge. So they had trees growing in their medians and whatever. Well, I woke up as I was slanting down into the median, and I tried to turn to correct to get back up, and all it did was swing sideways, and we slammed into a tree. The tree went into the side of our car, and then we spun around and we went forward right into another tree. And that tree ended up pushing the engine right between your mom and I. It was right in between us, and it was steaming, and I thought, it was going to start on fire, but I was in shock. I mean, literally in shock. And your mom, had been asleep. So that's actually a good thing, because her body was limp. I think otherwise she would have had broken bones and whatever, but she kind of slid under the dash and the engine was there. And then I was hanging out the window on the driver's side, but we were alive. And that semi driver had slowed down behind me. When he noticed me swerving back and forth and kind of falling asleep, he thought I was drunk. And so he didn't know how to approach. He was going to come up and try to get our attention. But before he could do that, I went off the road. And thankfully, he was there, because he radioed ahead to get an ambulance. The ambulance went the wrong way on the freeway, which would have taken him another 15, 20 minutes to get back to us. So another car stopped and they took us to the hospital. They took your mom and I to the hospital.
Well, a series of good luck. You had your guardian angel. You said this is really early Sunday morning?
This was, yeah, so it was 12 hours after 6 p.m. So it was 6 a.m. 6 a.m. Sunday morning.
In Tennessee.
In Tennessee. So it was just, I was thankful that somebody would do that for us.
And in 72, like you're saying, there's no cell phones,
No, that's why the semi driver had, breaker whatnot. He had
right?
a CB radio. And that was the thing that got the ambulance there. Because the highway patrol I don't know that they ever showed, they must have shown up eventually, but I had already been transported to the hospital, I think, before the highway patrol got there.
Well, when you hear about stories that, like when parents are talking to their children and they sort of tongue in cheek, they talk about, gosh, if this had gone any other way, you wouldn't be here today. The children wouldn't be here, this kind of thing. And that was one of those scenarios where
you would not be talking with me right now.
Just like that, we wouldn't be here having this conversation.
It was so close to going the wrong way, going bad. I mean, we were so close. If I had rolled that car or something, it would, it's just Mustangs, back then weren't a really big solid car. They were smaller cars. And I don't think we would have survived had we rolled.
Wow.
Thank goodness we didn't roll.
That is an interesting story. It just makes your heart stop thinking about, and imagine, how traumatic it would be to wake up and be, just have gone through something, that the noise and the heat and
yeah, it was pretty wild. And Andy, one thing then, of course, we had to take a Greyhound bus to the Twin Cities. And by the way, I missed that first class.
Oh, I'm sure.
But we had to take a Greyhound bus to the Twin Cities. From there, we didn't have any money. So my mom and dad, your grandma and grandpa, wired me some money. And then we got on a Greyhound bus. And I remember falling asleep on the bus and then waking up thinking I was driving. And it was just, I must have looked pretty weird to the people riding with us. But yeah, that was, for the longest time, I would wake up at night thinking I was driving. And it was not fun.
Oh my gosh. Just, jerking awake, thinking that, reliving that moment. You had quite the story to tell to your class that you had missed back at U of M.
Yeah, well, we had, I had some pretty big bruises and bangs. I had a big welt on my forehead and I had cuts and stuff in my face. And so it was pretty obvious that we had been through, you know, a bad experience and they wanted to know what happened. So we kind of told them the story. But I think the lesson learned there is don't drive tired.
Yeah.
Don't. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Pull over. There are rest areas. There are, hotels. Yeah, just don't drive tired. And to this day, I don't drive tired anymore. It was too close to take that chance.
Good message, Dad. Thanks for sharing it with us. So we'll end there, and let me catch my breath for a minute. Every time
Good
you
thing
tell
you
us,
have a breath. You might not have had one.
I might not have had one. I've been just like that, just that easy. Well, thanks, Dad. Wonderful to see you. Can't wait till next time. Until then,
Yep.
love you.
Love you, pal. See you later, bud.
Bye now.